The following video is about a fairy tale told in 1909. March 12th, the Arizona Gazette ran a story about G.E. Kinkaid reaches Yuma. G.E. Kinkaid was from Lewiston, Idaho, and boated solo down the Colorado River, starting off in Green River, Wyoming, past the Laguna Dam sluiceway, and saw an archaeological dig after that. Then arrived in Yuma. Now, Yuma is a spot 400 miles south of the Grand Canyon approximately. It's longer than that, really. It's 12 miles south of that dam, and it's 180 miles upstream from where this all drains out at the coastline into the ocean. Now, after a solo boat trip of 600 miles of Colorado River through lots of sights and sounds, the only thing mentioned out of that long trip was something 12 miles away in Yuma, from Yuma, or less. Not even giving a precise location. No mention of the Grand Canyon, not really, or any caves, a granary, Buddha statues, whatever memes and BS you want to bring up. Only talking of a local place just south of a dam and just north of Yuma. Presumably in a straight line. Around a month later, April 5th, 1909, the Arizona Gazette did another article. Now remember, this article, originally from March, has no real news value. Why was it posted? Except that G. Kinkaid arrived in Yuma. That's it. Oh, I saw an archaeological dig between Yuma and the dam. Because when you dig up a dam or do that kind of work, you might run into an archaeological dig site. You might dig up some bones. Okay, fine. So anyway, April 5th, a while later, 1909, Arizona Gazette attributed to G.E. Kinkaid. And by the way, both of these don't really tell you who's writing the story because someone doesn't want to take responsibility. Journeying down the Colorado River, found on government land a specific location, or at least it's pseudo-specific. The location references something called Crystal Canyon and or El Tovar. Now, when you look it up these days, you're going to get several El Tovars, you will, and you will get several Crystal Canyons. So I decided to do a little bit of a kind of a, I'm going to limit it somehow, but the location as a reference point is referring to 42 miles upriver, presumably the Colorado River, from the place called Crystal Canyon that's supposed to be at or near the El Tovar, or a location called that. Now, El Tovar changed over time, and or there's some ambiguity here. Crystal Canyon seems like a better thing to look up, so I'm using that mostly for the basis here. There's a lot of Crystal Canyons. But on the Colorado River, and if we're going to make it about being part of the Grand Canyon, I'm going to use an area within what is conventionally treated as the Grand Canyon area, and within a short range of something named Crystal. Now, when I looked up Crystal Canyon associated with the Colorado River, I found mention of Crystal Rapids, which actually is a location. This was caused by a landslide that interrupted the water, made a rapids, so it's called Crystal Rapids, named after a nearby or adjacent canyon, named after its river, the Crystal River, or Crystal Stream, or Crystal Way, or whatever. It's precise enough, I'm going to use that. So I went upriver 2 ways. When you're looking at a map and you're a traveler, you either use the pathway in mileage, in this case in a river, which, how was the person estimating it? So, okay, we'll do a curve fit for the entire river up, and then a longer distance on the same river, where I just go from here to here at 42 miles and move it around until I hit the river. There we go. So at a curve fit, I found a spot that's 1 mile north of a location you can look up. It's called Keyhole Natural Bridge. It's right near it. And that has a 3,000-foot cliff at the 42-mile curve fit from Crystal Rapids. It's close enough, good enough. Okay, 3,000 feet. Pretty good candidate. Let's do another one. A completely straight line from the same thing. I found a 2,600-foot cliff, and that's a straight line. Now, the GPS for this, we're just going to do a short version as an example. 36.3962, comma, negative 112.58. 1, we'll call it that. That gets you close enough to it to see the area. That will be close enough. And the other one is 36.2373, it goes on, comma, negative 112.99, we're going to say 3. These are rounding off the numbers. This would get you at least kind of close to it. This is how little of information you need to give to tell me where you say this is supposed to be instead. Well, you're just wrong. You're off by a mile. GPS it. One of them is a 3,000-foot cliff. The other one's 2,600 foot. And I'm being very generous with making a big number for a reason. The rest of the description. We're looking for one where we're 2,000 feet above the riverbed and 1,486 feet below the East Canyon wall. On the East Canyon wall, we're looking for the East Canyon wall here, but I picked either wall. I didn't care. Want to get the number close to it. That means I'm looking for a 3,400 foot tall or 3,500 foot tall cliff. Now remember, these are stratified. So how far do you go before you have that? There's an average agreed limit for how deep the canyon really is, reference to the highest topology in the area. And on older maps, they sometimes listed it. The U.S. Geological Survey used to list the Colorado River going through the Grand Canyon for specific reasons from that standard height for the flat plateau that got lifted up to the height of the river. And you used to have a USGS survey of it. It's gone now. I don't know where the hell it went. I tried for about 2 hours. I gave up. But anyway, we're looking for a 3,500-foot cliff. The tallest one's 3,000. So neither location will work. The rest of the description. At that 2,000 feet above what's called the riverbed, which should be the shallowest part, there's several ways of saying the center of a river or its bed versus deepest part. But, okay, we do 2,000 feet above the riverbed and 1,483 below the cliff. East Canyon wall. Hidden from river view is a shelf. Now, I'm going to stop right here and say both locations I could find don't have an east or west wall. They run east to west, so they have north and south walls. So we're already having a lot of problems here. Which means we can't find this unless someone either find... Well, no, this is the only source. And you have to be really generous with this, so you're going to get people giving lots of different locations. Okay, let's go on. This shelf is actually just a stratification where it's stair-stepping, and it describes a 30-yard, mostly flat area with steps, or stratifications, that lead from where, quote, the water level of the river was originally when this was done. It's presuming it's got a 2,000-foot depth cut since then. And you'll find a cave that's 12 feet wide at the main passage that goes down to 9 feet wide at about 57 feet. Now, this is where I'm not going to go off on Buddha statues and, sacred geometry and numerology and Gamadatra or whatever you want to bring up. I'm going to be critiquing the story based on its assumptions at turn of previous century biases people had. But again, it mentions an east and or west wall or canyon wall that aren't at these locations. It uses a set of points, 2 of them, that are not at the same point. Well, it's totally obvious is not an appropriate response. Give me a GPS location of where Crystal Canyon is supposed to be and where this is supposed to be. Artist Warren, I can't pronounce it, Rollins, retells a Hopi Indian legend of their ancestors who lived by the Colorado River, Grand Canyon, and in an underworld is the story that's given. Versus the actual story that the Hopi talk about. And also the artist not actually doing that. So that's an attribution in the second story here. Okay? That also cuts and shoots it in the ass. Then there's the Smithsonian Institute financing an expedition having archaeologists under the direction of Professor S.A. Jordan, but the 1846 Smithsonian Institution is not this misnamed Smithsonian Institute that's also found lately from a citation on the internet. I also want to point out that at the time the story was run, that dam had just barely been built. So that's kind of an odd thing for the person to recognize and note. Basically, something was in the news before. They did a fake story about that. Somebody coming through. Okay, and it's prep work for this artwork here, this fan fiction. The mystery of whence America's prehistoric peoples came from and who they were will be solved by the Smithsonian Institute. And the solution the story gives is ancient people who migrated from the Orient or Egypt in the time of Ramesses, 1250 BC, who were at a high stage of civilization. Repeatedly, this kind of statement was made. Their conclusion is because they had slaves and serfs. 1909 America, saying you had a high stage of civilization if you have such an extreme form of class separation that you had serfs and slaves as being a high stage of evolution of your society. Therefore, Indians must not be an independent culture that isn't being appropriated and deemed incapable of doing basic shit. No, it had to be descendants. They had to be slaves of the Egyptians or the Orient. Except by 880, Pueblo and ruins had been found near the Grand Canyon, and there's a shit ton of evidence of exactly what happened. People were ignorant of in 1909, because this is a story told from ignorance. And it's a story told from, I'm going to use the word, fucking racism. People saying the Egyptian pyramids couldn't be built by those stupid, savage, primitive Egyptians that effectively ran the planet for a while. No, they couldn't be, a great empire that kicked ass, took names, and then ignored them. Well, the Romans couldn't have done anything either because they had to be helped by ancient aliens. Ancient aliens is a bullshit excuse for saying, I'm going to devalue what happened before me because it doesn't involve my ancestors. Go fuck yourselves. Anyway, next thing. This was referred to as a Mulholland story or Mulhattan story by the Cochinico Sun in 1909, April 16th. It was immediately debunked because it was a bullshit story. They were tongue-in-cheek laughing about it because everybody reading it knew this was BS. This is somebody's fan fiction they put in the newspaper and tried to make it look like a news story. Now let's go on. Mulhattan was a traveling salesman who had a lot of fun posting fake stories to the point that it seems like he was a habitual liar or a compulsive liar. Now I want to bring up the Kinkaid family that was in the area. They were in the news, so somebody attributed it to them. We have a George F. Kinkaid, not GE, but a GF Kinkaid that existed at the time. That's probably the basis for this. He was 16. Also, it should be pointed out that Mulhattan made his first fake story when he was about the same age. And this was known at the time and joked about. People got the joke. The Colorado River was explored very thoroughly. It wasn't done like this. And it had Egyptian landmark places because people were fans at the time of Egyptology. So they, it was in the news. It was something fun to do. And they wanted to give them unique sounding names. They also did from other cultures like ancient Rome. As for the rest of it, I'll include a compressed version of the entire story below in the description, right before it says Dutton Survey or whatever. And, you can read it if you want to, but this is a BS story that people keep nearly worshipping because of some idiot from 1992 named Childress. It's a lie. It always has been. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. You'll need it.